It's a phrase that has been thrown around a lot in recent years, but free speech still dominates the political discourse, both on and off the screen. The 2022 Republican nominee for the Pennsylvania gubernatorial election, Doug Mastriano, has come under fire from Republican Jews for campaigning on the alt-right social media platform Gab, a website known for spurting out, amongst other things, anti-Semitic content. Gab is one of many alt-right platforms created as an alternative to Twitter, which has severely cracked down on hate speech over the last few years. In fact, one of Elon Musk's main objectives in buying Twitter was to allow greater freedom for free speech, a decision which was praised by many, especially those in favour of the First Amendment surrounding freedom of speech. However, there may be consequences, such as harassment and incitement, the January 6 riots, for example, or InfoWars host Alex Jones, who is currently on trial for spreading falsehoods about victims of the Sandy Hook school shooting. So where do we draw the line? Where does free speech become hate speech? Is one of the most fundamental human rights, the right to speak freely, under threat? How can you regulate free speech?
So let's get to it. How can you regulate free speech? Dear gentlemen, you know the rules. You get 30 seconds to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we pick up the conversation now right after. So, Jonathan, take the lead.
First, let's understand, free speech does not mean that your freedom is not limited and that you don't have any liability towards what you say. This means that you're free to say whatever you want, but if what you say actually hurts someone else, then you're liable for that. That's why we have slander rules, intellectual property laws, or privacy protection laws. This all means that while you cannot limit speech because you cannot limit thought, you can make people liable for that later on.
And we will pick up from that point exactly in a short minute. David, your take?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think part of the problem right now is when it comes to free speech is limited mostly for people that tend to be leaning more right-wing. We have, for instance, the ban of Parler back in January of 2021, which is a right-wing platform that they weren't really doing anything. They cracked down on the people who were doing things that were anti-free speech, basically trying to cause harm to other people. And then all of a sudden, every single big high-tech company shut them down. They wouldn't let them use their servers, nothing. They shut them down totally.
And last but definitely not least, Mr. Russ Kane, your thoughts?
Free speech is fine, but understand it comes with consequences, right? So it's you can say what you like, but if you're going to get sued through the laws of slander or libel, so be it. And that's the caveat that should come with free speech.
And now we will perhaps even dare to discuss social morals. I know it's not a sexy topic, but we will. So, gentlemen, please feel free to interact from this point onwards. I know it may sound like a broken record, but we can't really allow ourselves, again, as a society, to avoid this question. Where do we draw the line between free speech and hate speech? Can we even draw this line? Is there a line? Russ?
I think that each country...
Yes, Russ, please take the lead, and we will continue from that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thanks. One person's free speech is another person's hate speech. You know, you can go on Twitter, let alone this other thing, this bloke in Pennsylvania, wherever the hell he is. You can go on Twitter, and within 30 seconds, you want to go and have a shower. It's like swimming in a sewer. Or you can not engage with it. It really is as simple as that. So, again... The trouble is that social media and the internet, it's the Wild West. It's Dodge City. It's almost unmanageable. It always was going to be absolutely unmanageable. So the problem is, how do we bring in the normal laws of slander and libel? It should be exactly as if you slandered somebody in a newspaper or in a novel or in a book. It should be exactly the same thing. The same rules should apply. The problem is, if you're up against a big organization, who the hell has the money to take them to court? That's one of the problems.
But does it mean, Jonathan, that we are perhaps at the early stages of regulating thoughts?
I don't think that we should regulate thought. I don't think that we should actually impose restrictions. What happened now is that U.S.-based values were inflicted all over the globe because of the centralization of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They're all American U.S.-centric with their regulation, their terms of service. And that means that U.S. values, which differ from European values, they apply here. And this means that, for example, in some cases, Nazi propaganda is allowed and is considered free speech because the U.S. allows it, whilst on the other end, nudity might be construed as pornography and therefore prohibited. Also, when they go in and these platforms and censor, instead of letting the government do its job, they take the role of the ruler. This causes them to be state-like. And then we have to manage and negotiate our relationship with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as a country. And that's a real problem because Israeli regulators shouldn't go and ask politely from Facebook to enforce Israeli laws. The same goes for India, US, UK.
Yeah.
They should be helping us enforce the laws.
And we will get to the perhaps more global outlook on the topic in a hot minute. But David, tech giants are at least saying to be trying to build this self-regulatory body to an extent to address content issues and problems. But can they be trusted? You yourself are suggesting it is all politically motivated. So can we trust tech companies themselves to do it for us?
Right, absolutely not. I think that part of the biggest problem was the laws that were passed in the 90s. They kind of let these tech companies just do whatever they want. They don't take any responsibility for what people put on there. They don't take responsibility if somebody sits there and says, I'm going to go kill people in Sandy Hook. I'm going to go there and start shooting people. Not only that, to touch on what Jonathan was saying about, I happen to be the chairman of the board of an organization called MAGEN, which protects children that were sexually abused. And to say that pornography should be allowed just because Europe does it and not to stand by American standards, I'm sorry, but the European standards when it comes to pornography and especially against children and sexual abuse against children and how it's just gone crazy on the internet, including on applications like Snapchat and TikTok, just awful, horrible things are happening to our kids across the world. So I think the American standards when it comes to that stuff is great. But the part of the problem was also because of what they did in America with the laws allowing these platforms to basically rule themselves. They're not publications. They're not considered publications. So anything's written on there it's free. It's free game. Anybody can put whatever they want, including Nazi propaganda, including people saying death to Israel or death to Bibi. And I think we have to see there's a big difference, right? So Bernie Sanders, he said some bad things about some Republicans, and all of a sudden somebody went and shot them at a baseball game. That's not hate speech. What Bernie Sanders, it wasn't hate speech. He didn't cause it. But what hate speech is when you're actually saying, let's go kill the Jews. This Nazi propaganda is let's go kill the Jews. It's exactly the difference. And we need to take care of those two things. Also the sexualization of our children, and also this attacking people with all kinds of hate speech that these big tech guys, they all care about the money, nothing else.
But if we are seeking some sort of a more fundamental mechanism in this respect, if not tech companies, then who? Governments? Wouldn't that rather be considered interference in the most basic social liberties, Russ?
Why have we given these tech companies a complete get-out-of-jail-free card? Why is that the case? You know, the other guys on the panel are absolutely 100% right. This is an insane situation. These companies, these huge, gigantic tech companies, are riding roughshod over any law, international law, UK law, where I am, Israeli law, etc. They are far, far too powerful. They seem to be above the law, and stuff happens. And as one of the guests has already said, oh, hey, not our fault. Nothing to do with us. It's all to do with you. But you can't monitor because it's so huge. It's impossible to monitor. You can't have, 3 million people sitting at desks saying, I don't like that. I better get rid of it. It's physically impossible, which is why they use algorithms. Plus, there's a huge amount of politicization behind all of this. Destabilization. And I don't go around wearing tinfoil hats, but it's a fact. You can see it's no surprise. All of this has happened. The West goes into decline. and China and Russia are coming into the ascendancy. Do you think that's just by a happy circumstance? I don't think so.
Yeah, David.
So I think I can speak for Jonathan and Russ in saying we don't want to be like Iran and shut down these platforms totally. We don't want to be like China and have these like truth police on, unlike what the Biden administration were trying to do is have this truth police. We don't want to have this. We want to have open discussion. We want people to have discussions. We want people to talk. We want people to bring ideas. But when you have a platform who decides what ideas are going to be put up on your stream higher up because they see it fitting into their stream of thought, and then taking other things and lowering them down, it's a big problem. When we have a platform that says, okay, you can have all these sexualization things of children with transgender guys going and performing in kids' schools at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then but for somebody to be out there with a shirt off or something is considered bad.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not lacking examples in this respect. But Jonathan, the companies are making a big effort to try and create distinctions for PR purposes or business purposes. Parler and Gab and Truth Social and Instagram now showing on your feed TikTok videos. Are they all essentially the same?
I don't think so. And my solution to the problem that everyone's talking about is actually to separate three things. The platform, which is the technological supplier, be it TikTok, Instagram, Google, Twitter, whatever. The content moderation, which should be applied in the community itself, meaning that each community should select its own standards and not have one global unified community standards, and the algorithm selection, meaning whether you want your content linear, modular, or chosen by a computer. This would allow each and every one of us both free speech, meaning I can say whatever I want. No one is limiting what I say, but everyone can choose what they want to listen to. If I want David's values to moderate my own feed, I can apply that. I can tell them, David, here you go. Get
take me out of
feed,
the echo chamber.
Moderate me, please. I allow you. Or I can do it myself, or I can pass it to someone else. This would create a better solution.
Well, solution, this sounds like a great solution. I doubt that the tech companies will give in so much power they have. You're staying with us, gentlemen, as we broaden our discussion to the more global outlook, if you will. Right after the break, Jonathan Klinger, David Wiener, and Russ Kane. Don't go anywhere. And you two viewers, we're back in a bit. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us, Russ Kane, David Wiener, and Jonathan Klinger. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for staying with us. We have been touching this issue in the previous segment of the debate, but we're going to dive in a bit further. We tend to look at this complex question from a Western lens, or more accurately, an American lens, not just when it comes to the legal complications here, but should we even hold the same conversation elsewhere in the world? Should we? That's the main question. Let's take a closer look, and we continue the discussion right after.
Elon Musk's ownership of Twitter will simply aggravate the problems we see in the region. It will increase the likelihood that Twitter will be exploited as a tool of surveillance and repression, simply because his idea of Twitter is so libertarian. His anything-goes ideology will play into the hands of authoritarian states who will just manipulate Twitter to create fake accounts and to intimidate others under the guise of free speech.
One idea that he has proposed that could be particularly worrying for a lot of activists who use Twitter anonymously is wanting to authenticate all human accounts on Twitter. It's something that he put out yesterday. There are a number of activists for very obvious reasons to avoid repression who use Twitter anonymously, who have anonymous accounts, to avoid being detected by their regimes and being harassed or arrested or worse. And so being forced to put your name on your account could be worrying for individuals like that.
Yeah, So let's get to it and kickstart this part of the debate with another 30-second round each. Can we have a one-size-fits-all policy on that? Russ, take the lead, please.
No, that's it. No, you can't. It's impossible. Because you can't. If you think about the United Nations, please, really. So they can't get their act together. You're not going to get it together on social media. It'd be quite impossible.
David, better predictions, perhaps?
It's possible. The problem is that you have these authoritarian regimes that are problematic. And I think what we just saw in that clip is also the opposite. Elon Musk isn't the one that's, the whole reason why the deal is going bad right now is because Twitter was hiding the fact that they had so many bots on there and spreading all this stuff that it wasn't real people, just so they can make money. And now that Elon Musk has unveiled it, it just shows how the left in America is just using these social platforms to manipulate things. I think if we have something that we can verify who the people are, it'll help a lot.
Jonathan, your thoughts?
Well, first, we're already in the midst of a war. The war is between the EU and the United States. Back in 2018, the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation in the EU, said, well, we're afraid of these big tech companies that are coming from the United States. We want to change privacy laws to allow better privacy protection for our residents, and that is in order to change and challenge their business model. This war says that values are very much culture-centric.
And speaking of this culture-centric topic, in countries where human rights are more compromised to begin with to an extent, shouldn't we first fight not to regulate free speech at all and only then try to scale it back, or we will be just repeating the same mistakes the West has been doing? Jonathan, and please feel free to interact, gentlemen.
I don't think that countries that limit free speech or don't have any democratic values are good places to do business anyway. I wouldn't go and open a branch for my own business in a non-democratic country. I want democratic values wherever I want business. However, some of these platforms prefer money, and then they wiggle around these values and these laws to allow these countries to have, let's say, a detached or semi-detached internet. Some would actually alter search results, block certain keywords, or limit interaction with non-residents. This means that whatever they're getting is not the real internet, and I would avoid that anyway. I would help these people, even in the price of losing money, having the real access to the real internet and real values.
But obviously, social media. Yeah, please.
I think that's actually what he's saying is the good point. And I think that's part of the, this is why I really hate that clip that you played before, because you're attacking Elon Musk, right? That clip was kind of saying something about him. But look what he's doing with this Starlink company. I mean, he's doing some amazing things. Russia invades Ukraine, shuts down Ukraine's internet. Nobody can get online because they're trying to hide everything they're doing from the world. And Elon Musk sends in their Starlink to basically give the whole country internet, to let everybody be on there to show what Russia is doing. He's fighting against these tyrannic states. And it's amazing how somebody is trying to actually help the world, help everybody all over the place. And people are just attacking him constantly. And this is exactly what the problem is, because there's so many people that are hungry for money that they have these big companies, and they'll go and they'll play the games with China. They'll play the games with Iran, and they'll play the games with Russia because they want the money. When you have somebody as rich as him, he doesn't care about the money anymore. He cares about helping people. And I think that's the important thing here, is that we need to figure out a way to actually make sure, like I think it was Russ said, that we get internet to the people. We get the internet to them in ways that the regimes can't shut it down. And that's exactly what he's trying to do, which is amazing in my point of view.
But and I'd like to say that clip with the guy, whoever he was, attacking Elon Musk, I just wonder what planet he was on, to be absolutely honest. I sat there in disbelief thinking, do you actually read the news and watch television, or are you just being fed this by... I was astounded by that.
Or maybe he's just on Twitter.
He's doing the opposite. He's doing the opposite.
He's trying to get a flight on SpaceX. I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to leave this planet. I mean, you're right. What planet is he on? It's just incredible.
But Russ, we are nearing the end of our debate, unfortunately. Russ, which is more dangerous, controlled freedom of speech or limitless platforms at this point in time?
There's a simple answer to that. You could have asked me, Russ, would you rather I cut off your left leg or your right leg? I don't want you to cut off either. Yeah. It's not it's an unanswerable question. And I think we actually have to face that. There's no glib answer. I can't give you some sort of wonderful soundbite. I wish I could. They're both horrible options.
So maybe
that's what we're facing.
And Jonathan, maybe the way out to an extent is to stop treating social media giants as merely business ventures. They're not not just business companies. We can take a look at Facebook's lack of oversight, one of many examples, unfortunately, playing a massive role when we're talking about the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar, for example, not paying any price whatsoever. So how long can we contain the mistakes they're making without demanding them to take blame?
Well, it's a whole antitrust issue, actually. The whole thing is like this because Facebook became too big to fail. As long as everyone else is on Facebook, and as long as all the media is dependent on Facebook for their own publications, then we have no choice but to acknowledge their great power and allow them to do whatever they want. Once we can downsize them, we can split them, like they tried to do with Microsoft back in the 90s with the browsers. Once we get into that, and we're able to cut down these companies into chunks that each is independent, we might be able to take down their power and make them more compliant with laws. I think that they shouldn't be liable. They shouldn't impose speech restrictions at all. Whoever should do that is each government. Each government should have access and the ability to pursue crimes that were committed inside that country. And without allowing that interface to occur, there's no point in having them enforcing speech, because the worst case, if you publish any hate speech, the worst sanction you'll get is being taken down. That's not enough.